Welcome to the RadioU Podcast. Coming up, say hello to Olo.
Also, Mavericks GM Nico Harrison said the most unhinged thing ever, but it makes perfect sense.
All that and more on the way next. Imagine Darth Vader officiating your wedding. It's not a dream. It could be real life. Of course, you know where you have to go for this to happen, right?
Vegas, baby.
Oh, I was going to say the Death Star, but yeah, it actually is Las Vegas. It is Las Vegas. Coming up appropriately on May the 4th, which is sooner than you think. That's, 2 weeks away? You could go to Las Vegas, where the Little Vegas Chapel, one of the iconic locations in Vegas where, normally it'd be Elvis marrying you there probably.
Yeah.
Instead, for May the 4th, they are literally offering Star Wars themed weddings, if that's how you so choose to tie the knot.
Wow. I mean, I don't choose that at all.
Yeah.
But, I'm sure there are some that would love that.
There's definitely, I'm sure, we're telling you about this. It's probably already booked up, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
We are that close to May the 4th, and there are that many people that love Star Wars that much. Honestly, they probably just wish they could marry Star Wars.
Marry the franchise?
Yes, marry Darth Vader.
But it's so up and down sometimes.
Have you noticed that doesn't really seem to stop people?
Yeah, but I just mean it'd be a roller coaster of a relationship. Kind of like sports.
It would. That is true, but it's one of those things. I think some people they might as well have married Star Wars back in the day, and no matter how many times Star Wars lets them down and
they just
steps
keep
out
crawling back
and doesn't give them what they want, only cares about its own needs and not theirs.
It's a toxic relationship.
It is a toxic, and they still keep coming back. They just can't quit Star Wars. But the Little Vegas Chapel is offering 2 different packages. Yoda one for me. Don't laugh at that. Do not laugh at that.
No, I can't not laugh at that.
Do not. That's what they want. And the Love Star package.
Okay, that one's lame.
They didn't even try with that one. But they've been promoting it. This is kind of funny. They had their staff members wear t-shirts that say, "Till Death Star do us part."
That's not funny at all.
That's kind of good.
No, it's not.
It's a little good.
No, it's not.
They tried with that.
You can't beat Yoda one for me. I'm sorry. You can't beat that.
So actually, you could either have Darth Vader or Princess Leia officiate your wedding. And of course, already you're getting married in Vegas, and all that comes with that. So that is an option for you. I just...
What if I wanted Yoda to do it?
I know. I feel like Yoda, if I was imagining which character from Star Wars would be most likely to officiate a wedding, it seems like Yoda.
I mean, I guess that'd be hard logistically to find somebody to do that.
The photos would be tough.
Yeah.
He'd need a pedestal or something like that.
You need a scissor lift for him or something.
Yes. But that is an option for you. If there's someone out there, if there's still spaces open, you could get married by Darth Vader if that's something that's been on your bucket list.
Not to Darth Vader.
No.
By Darth Vader.
Well, I'm sure you can dress up as whatever you want. This guy's in a stormtrooper outfit. A new color just dropped and your eyes literally aren't ready for it. 8772 Radio U. Scientists at the University of California have discovered a new color, or at least found a way for people to see a color that supposedly we've never seen before. They call it Olo, which is definitely how Megamind says hello in Megamind.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that?
Yes.
Olo is the new color. I don't know why they called it that.
Yeah,
is it a reference to the movie?
I don't think so.
That'd be kind of obscure.
I mean, the color is a blue-green color.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know.
Kind of like the color of Megamind.
Right. I was just thinking that. But I don't think that's where they got that from.
No, I don't think so either. And most people probably don't even remember this movie that we're talking about. Cartoon movie with Will Ferrell.
Very sad if you don't remember it.
It's a great
movie. Yes.
Not here nor there, no, though. So how did scientists create a way to get people to see a color we've never seen before in the history of mankind?
How'd they do it, Hudson?
They used they used
science.
They directly controlled the human eye's photoreceptor activity via cell-by-cell light delivery. I still don't really know what that means.
I don't understand that either. Apparently, it's something where, like, you know how we have like cones in our eyes that like help, because your retina is what makes you see color.
Okay.
And so they were able to manipulate that in some way so that you could see this new blue-green color. What they're trying to use this for is to help treat color blindness, specifically red-green color blindness, because as we all know, that impacts a very important aspect of our lives, which is driving. So that would be really good if they could heal that color blindness.
That'd be pretty amazing if they could do that. They use a technique called Oz, and that's basically what they did to mess with the photoreceptors in people's eyes.
Yep.
And these people say that they've never witnessed this color before. And these are people that see color like they're not colorblind, as far as we know, right?
Yeah, they're not colorblind. And when this would happen, like they'd be looking at a picture, they'd be looking at a video or something, and they would see this new color, which is crazy to me. It's crazy to me to think that there are colors in the universe and in our world right now that we just aren't seeing correctly because our eyes just don't pick it up.
I know. Yeah, I was like, it's hard to fathom, but then you think about all the animals that we know that are colorblind in one way or another. And so for them, like if we could ever figure out a way to get them to see blue, that would be an entirely new color that they've never seen, even though we know full well what blue looks like. So I guess you have to think about it that way. Also, color, have you ever heard this like kind of thing that like you can't describe color without using something that's that color? So it's like impossible to describe. So in a way, like how do we even know they actually saw a color that we've never seen?
Yeah, it's true.
They literally described it by using colors we've seen.
Yes. I remember watching a movie one time, and it kind of changed my whole perspective on blindness. And it was a movie about a girl that was kind of like a troubled teen or whatever, and she ended up volunteering at like a camp for the blind. And she's like, it's like a horse ranch or whatever. And she's like riding through this horse ranch with this 12-year-old boy, and he's blind, and he asks her what the color of his horse is. And she says, it's brown. And he's like, what does brown look like? And she has no idea how to answer because they're right.
Yeah.
How do you describe color if you can't see it? And so that's absolutely true.
Yeah, that always is something that blows my mind. And I always want to figure out a way, like, how could I describe a color without, like, actually to somebody that couldn't see color?
Yeah.
You can't do it.
It's pretty much impossible.
Yeah.
You have to see it to know it.
Which almost, it does, in a way, makes it feel like color is a myth. Doesn't it?
I mean, I don't think color itself is a myth because we do have science behind color.
We see it.
But I think it's the language of how we use it and describe it. It is very much like subjective to us.
Yeah.
Like what you said with the animals not being able to see certain stuff. It's like our reality is limited by our perception. So,
yeah. Or this is the other thing that is, I don't know, this just feels like weird talk. But
weird talk, guys.
I don't know. I just feel like I'm rambling. But like when somebody says, because we can only describe color with other colors or things that are that color, what you see as blue may be green to me, but we both call it blue. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It blows my mind.
That dress, remember the blue and the blue or black or the gold and whatever white dress? Oh man, that messed with everybody.
I know. Yeah, we need to stop. A major change might be coming to the college football playoff. Radio U, where music is going, 8772 Radio U. The college football playoff committee's spring meetings are happening. ESPN's Heather Dinich reports that one of the things that they are considering is changing the criteria of how teams get selected, which definitely, I mean, that could use some work.
Yep.
One of the things that's suggested, though, is having TV ratings come into play. Now, to be clear, I think this is an important distinction. That would come into play not for individual teams, but for conferences. It's basically, how do you decide which conferences get automatic bids each year? One of the things, but not the only thing, would be, well, TV ratings. Which conference gets watched the most? Those conferences should get teams automatically in. That still sounds silly to me, doesn't it, Allie?
Yes, absolutely.
It sounds ridiculous. That has no bearing on how good or bad of a team you are.
Yeah.
How deserving or not you are of making the college football playoff. Although, if they included this, I would under no circumstances do you have to hand it to him, but you kind of have to hand it to him for just actually being honest about what has been the truth the entire time the college football playoff has existed.
Yeah, we knew that this was kind of on their minds as far as when they are determining what teams get let in and what teams do not get let in. Mm-hmm. I remember, even as an Ohio State fan, I remember the outrage that TCU and Baylor had when Ohio State leapfrogged them in 2014. Mm-hmm. And did it work out for Ohio State? Yes. Were they one of the best 4 teams? Were they the best team in college football that year? They were. They went on to win the national championship. Mm-hmm. But it still sucked for TCU and for Baylor, who just because they didn't have the brand were leapfrogged. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think this definitely has played into the committee's decision, even if it hasn't been stated outright like this before.
Yeah. Literally, that one is one of the most egregious examples of TV ratings deciding rather than what has actually happened.
And not even just TV, like brand, I would say too. But Ohio State certainly does bring the TV ratings, but also just fans travel for Ohio State too. So I think all of that was taken into account.
And if they are going to go, so I think it should be noted too that basically the consensus is like nothing has been set in stone yet, but for this coming college football playoff, there's still going to be 12 teams. And they may probably decide to change how they seed the teams in some way, which would be wise.
I think they need to change that. Yes.
We don't need Arizona State getting a bye, but that may be the only change for this coming season. And then you're looking forward, and that's where these kinds of things like TV ratings could come into play.
I will say though, it's unlikely that this change will be added from what I'm hearing so far.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be. And if you're going down to the point of like, well, we're going to decide which conferences get automatic bids by TV ratings, then just don't give automatic bids.
Yeah.
And in a way, I feel like that's what they should do anyways, because like, even though Arizona State played a competitive game last year, like, should they have been in? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it should just be the top 12 teams, or if they expand it, the top 16 teams that make it into the playoff. No automatic bids. If you want to do the buys, which I think they'll continue doing that, obviously, then it should go to the top 4 seeds, which they need to earn it on the field. It shouldn't matter what conference they're from. That should play no bearing into this. It just should be the top 12 teams in the country.
And if you want to give automatic bids, then I'm not saying that I want this, but I guess this is better than what we have now. Expand it so that you can have every conference get an automatic bid. Yeah. Just so that, so
that it's fair.
It should be fair one way or the other.
Right.
The TV ratings thing, to even mention that is
it's wild.
Silly. The Academy is changing its rules so that you have to watch all Oscar-nominated films before you can vote on any Oscar-nominated films. That's right. I'm the only person who can vote on the Oscars now. 8772 Radio U. This is literally a rule that maybe people thought might have already been in place, although how could they enforce it? But now it's official. It was always recommended for the Oscars that if you wanted to vote, it was like, well, yeah, you're supposed to watch the movies.
Right.
Of course, you can't just vote on name alone or, because you know somebody in the movie, blah, blah, blah. But there was no real way to like enforce that or track it or anything like that. And so everybody just kind of voted.
Yep.
Now they're actually making it an official rule where, to be clear, to vote in any specific category, you have to have seen all the movies in that category.
Yes.
And I think this is a great idea.
I think this is absolutely great. Like you said, they had this as a rule, like not an unspoken rule, but it was a thing where they recommended it.
It was
there was no way to track it.
Yeah.
And so now there is a system in place where they're literally going to track it, because if you are an Oscar voter, you get a free kind of platform to be able to screen these movies. Or if you don't want to do it that way, they're going to send you a form for each film that you said you watched somewhere else, where you have to fill out that you truly did watch this movie.
It has to be documented.
It has to be documented.
Which I'm sure people will lie about, get their assistants to fill out or whatever.
Right. Which I'm like, there's still going to be a way to bypass it, but it at least causes some type of red tape for those that are bypassing it. And like you said, this unfortunately has been happening because Oscar campaigning is a thing. Oscar lobbying is a thing. And so, it does kind of, it's the unfortunate part of it. It really is a politicky thing to win an Oscar. And so I think they're trying to remove that aspect and make it more genuine, make it more, like these movies truly deserve these awards. It's not just because, I know so-and-so and I've worked with them and I owe them a favor, so I'm going to vote for their movie. Like,
even though I don't want to watch it.
Right. Like, hopefully this helps get rid of some of that. I know it won't get rid of all of it, but hopefully it gets rid of some of it.
Honestly, I feel like at the end of the day, this won't change. And I mean, there's no way to actually tell, but I don't think it'll change the results that much.
Yeah.
Because I think probably even more of a bigger problem is people that want to vote in a certain category. Maybe they want to vote for Best Picture and there's 10 nominees and there's 3 they don't see. They're not going to vote for those at all.
No.
And so, and then they make up some excuse for why they wouldn't like those or whatever. If they, because you'll see these stories come out of like, oh, this movie was too long. Like we talked to Oscar voters, this movie was too long for me to vote for. Blah blah blah.
Like they didn't even watch it.
Yeah,
they looked at the runtime and they didn't even watch it.
Exactly. I think, and if you have that attitude going into a movie, it's probably unlikely that you're going to come out of it and then be like, whoa, I'm going to vote for that.
Right.
But
it could happen.
It could happen.
If you give it a shot.
This is why I watch every Oscar movie every year, because that does happen to me. I have stories every year of movies I thought would be good that weren't, or movies that I thought I have no interest in this, and then they actually turned out to be great. And so I'm sure it will, on the margins, change things a little bit, but it just makes it feel a little more fair, and a little more above board, and that's what we want.
Now, can we change how, this is a total change in topic, but can we change how Heisman voting happens so people can't vote for the Heisman before all the games have been played? Can we change that?
Yes, let's do that.
Can we please change that?
Let's change. Do you just want to make a list of all the voting kinds of things that need to be changed?
I just personally, and I think this is why I brought it up, you need to watch it before you can vote for it. And that's the same thing with the Heisman. I'm sorry, you need to see them actually play before you decide to vote. You can't make your decision before you've seen all the games.
There's so many things that fall into this category of the voting for it is all wrong.
It's all messed up.
Either the people that get to vote are all wrong, or the people that vote are doing it wrong.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean they come to the wrong conclusion always, but it does mean the process is wrong.
It does mean that they often are voting uninformed.
The new episode of The Last of Us is wild, man. It came out on Sunday. I promise I'm not going to spoil anything.
Don't spoil anything, but I already know.
Don't say anything.
I know what happens.
I don't even want to say how it kind of got spoiled for me. Here's what I'll say. Watch it as soon, if you're ever going to watch The Last of Us.
Watch it now or you will get it spoiled.
Yeah, catch up to the newest episode that came out on Sunday as soon as you can, because you can only go so long. I'm surprised you made it this long.
I honestly, last night scrolling through social media, something popped up and I saw it. I'm like, no!
I literally saw a headline this morning when I was preparing for the show that said exactly what happened. I'm like, how can you put that in a headline?
It's so dirty.
I'm so glad I watched it last night. But even going in last night, I kind of knew. But it's crazy. It is one of and I feel like I watch a lot of like the better TV shows. It's one of the most exciting episodes of TV we've had in a long time.
Absolutely.
It was crazy. I won't, again, not going to spoil anything. I will say you can definitely tell for this season and in this episode, they're really setting up like letting emotion take control of you and drive everything you do, where that's like kind of what's happening for multiple characters.
Yes.
And I'm sure it will show how that can be dangerous, something that you want to avoid. And that's a good lesson to learn.
Yeah.
I feel like many of us instinctually know that like you need to keep your emotions in control, and you're taught that growing up. Keep your emotions in control, because when you're too emotional, you aren't making the best decisions.
Right.
But that can go too far to me.
Sure.
To where if you're always bottling up your emotions and keeping them inside, that's unhealthy too. You need to let it out how you feel. And I know for me, sometimes you get this thing in your mind of like, particularly when you're talking to God, like God doesn't want to hear about your emotion. Like if you feel angry or upset, you can't tell God about that, because he's going to be like, oh, you're upset with my plan, huh? Like Like all of a sudden God's going to get mad at you like he's a person. And then it's just going to turn into a fight and turn into God being mad at you. But here's what's a huge relief is that you can let out whatever emotion you need with God. And that is not going to change the relationship, which is such a relief compared to how it is with literally any person.
Yeah.
You start talking to a person and let out the wrong emotion and too much of it, and it's going to change your relationship.
Yeah.
It doesn't do that with God.
No, because God doesn't love you because of what he can get out of you. He loves you for you, and he wants the same for him. He wants you to love him for him and not because you can pray and get what you want.
Yeah.
He wants you to truly love him just because of who he is, and he's worthy of that for sure. But guess what? So are you. He is showing you that by what we just celebrated over the weekend, Jesus dying for us on the cross. You are worthy of having a relationship with, of loving just because of who you are. And you don't need to worry about you dealing with some type of doubt, some type of fear, anxiety, and letting that out in some way. And God's going to turn his back and run for the hills. Like, no, he is right here with you, whatever you're going through.
Yeah. It's so therapeutic to let things out. And God is where you can do that, a safe place for you to do that. And then he is going to be there for you no matter what, no matter how you are feeling. You can always turn to Jesus, and that's not going to change things. It's not going to change how he views you, how much he loves you. He wants to be there for you. So I'd say take advantage of that.
Yeah.
Actually experience what that is like. And I feel like it'll really change things for you. If you want to know more, check out RadioU.com/free gift, or just wherever you are. Start letting it out with God. Hash it out. Let your emotions out. See what happens. Love them or leave them on Radio U. If you have a relationship issue you'd like us to help sort out, email mornings@radiou.com. We'll see what we can do. This is a tough one, Allie.
Okay.
We have a gal here who says, my boyfriend and I are about to go on our 4-year anniversary vacation. We are supposed to split the cost evenly. But his parents offered to pay for his half.
Oh, wow.
She says, we have a trip coming up for our anniversary. We decided to each pay half instead of doing presents. So the trip is our present to each other. That's nice.
Yes.
We both don't have jobs because we're in college, but we work full time over the summer. We're both pretty broke, but our parents help us out a lot and pay our rent. That's nice for each of them.
Yep.
He asked his parents to pay for his part of the trip, and they ended up paying his whole half. I still have to pay almost $500, and now he's paying nothing. Now it doesn't feel as meaningful. What do you think I should do to make this fair?
Yeah, that's pretty rough.
8772 Radio U. Ask your parents to pay? This is my first instinct.
Maybe.
I don't know if that's going to work.
I don't know either.
I feel like that'd be too easy.
Yeah, and I also feel like it'd be pretty not good to ask your parents to pay for it.
And then it's really not meaningful too, right?
I know, because as she said, it's like we agreed to do this instead of gifts because it's a gift to each other for this trip. And it's like, well, now he's not gifting you anything. His parents are gifting you this trip.
Yeah.
Pretty rough.
4 years and he pulls this? What do you do? 8772 Radio U. In a way, I can't be mad at him. I can't be mad at him for getting his parents to pay. But you can't be mad at him for not following the rules of the anniversary gift trip.
Right.
What do we do? 8772 Radio U. Allie, I'll let you have first crack at this before we get to some of the comments.
Well, I did really like Emily's message. She said, this is the kind of thing that you should be paying very close attention to. What I would have done is said, my parents gave me $500. Now we only have to pay $250 each. That is exactly what I thought before Emily even texted in. And as soon as she texted it in, I was like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I was thinking too. Because that's what I would have thought of. If you're in a relationship, you should be thinking of that in like a partnership type of thing. So if your parents are giving you $500 to help pay for this trip, then help the burden on your girlfriend now by, splitting the cost even further down so that it makes it less like, okay, well, now I don't have to pay anything at all. I'm not even giving you a gift, nothing. I mean, maybe he will give her a gift now, who knows? But I would have done that first before just being like, well, my 500 is covered, so you cover the rest. That's what I would have done.
Yeah.
So I agree with Emily.
That is a popular opinion. Yeah, Emily said that. Jessica also says split the remaining cost is what he should do. Some people are saying, and okay, here's Dylan, who says, ultimately, it's not about the money, it's about the time and experience together. So maybe a compromise is him spending his part of the money on an activity or night's dinner or something during the trip, or find a way to use it for something on the trip.
I was thinking that too. Maybe he could spend that. I mean, it's hard to, then you'd have to like track the money.
Yeah.
You don't want to get particular about that.
No, yeah, you don't have to be teetotaling or whatever.
No, but you would hope that he would then cover all the meals and cover all of the extra cost if he's not paying anything directly out of his, money.
But yeah,
we don't know what their trip looks like. We don't know exactly what this $1,000 was supposed to cover in the first place. Maybe it was covering meals, and a place to stay and all of that. But yeah, I would think if he's not spending the money for the trip with that cost, he needs to spend it somewhere else.
Yeah, he should. I think that, but the much simpler thing would just be, I'll put the $500 in for the, split that evenly among us to make it fair.
Yes.
Because we're both in a similar situation. We don't have a lot of money to contribute to this. And so this will just make things easier on us. But instead, yeah, he sounds like he's being a little selfish, whether he realizes or not.
Yeah, I think, one thing to note is they're young, they're in college. So it may just not be something where it's at the top of his mind thinking about that. So I don't want to say he's like the worst person ever.
No.
I don't think that's the case.
I can imagine.
But maybe just a little bit of perspective will help him out.
I can imagine at a time in my life doing the exact same thing and thinking like, this is a big W for me. Like now I don't have to pay anything.
Exactly.
But that would have been like, that you got to grow and mature.
Yes, you need to be a man and realize like, you need to grow up and realize this is not okay to do something like that.
Regina says, be honest about your feelings and let it play out. So definitely, you can let him know that this is not, that it doesn't really feel fair. And you would be well within your, you'd be right. She says, who knows, maybe he has something bigger planned.
Maybe.
Yeah, it is tough. I mean, $1,000, it depends how long you're going to be gone, because that sounds like that could almost literally just be like travel and hotel, or it could be the whole experience if it's only for a day or whatever. So it's hard to know, but
I would hope it's more than a day if it's $1,000.
Hey, it could be a really fun day. Although she said trip. She said trip.
Yeah, she said trip, so I would hope it's more than just a day.
So yeah, you could probably make something more of it. The other comment I do want to address, because a lot of people said this, is why are you going on a trip that you each have to spend $500 on when you hardly have any money? And let people have some fun. You know what I mean?
Let them. I'm not really thinking about that aspect. It did occur to me. The thought came into my brain. I'm not gonna lie, because it may not be the best financial decision. But I also don't feel like they have a lot of financial responsibility right now that they need to worry about. So I don't think they're putting themselves in a bad spot by doing this trip.
People would say, oh, you should, when you're that young, you don't have expenses. Any money you make, you should save. Yeah, but then you can't have any fun. It's their 4-year anniversary. You only get one. Make it memorable. It's not a good time to be somebody named Nico. Obviously, we covered in the last couple of weeks, Nico Iamaleava. He is the quarterback that left Tennessee to go to UCLA because he wanted more NIL money. He actually got less to do that.
Yeah.
And it's been a really tough time to be Dallas Mavericks general manager Nico Harrison. After back in, December, he traded Luka Doncic to the Lakers.
It was actually, I think, January, because it was right at Groundhog's Day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Either way, for a couple months, he's been public enemy number one in Dallas for sure.
Yeah.
The Mavericks just got eliminated last week in the play-in tournament to get into the NBA playoffs. And so he kind of hosted his end of season press conference yesterday. One of the things he said, talking about the trade where he sent Luka Doncic to the Lakers, he says, I did know Luka was important to the fan base. I didn't know at what level. Nico, he just led you to the NBA Finals. He is one of the top 5, top 3, maybe even players in the league. And you didn't know he was important. to the fan base.
Yeah, this is crazy. I saw this come through ESPN, like my ESPN app sent me a notification. Nico Harrison, quote, "I didn't know how important Luka Doncic was to the fan base." And I'm like, what? You are the general manager of your team and you didn't know? Yeah, it's obvious you didn't know, or else you wouldn't have gone about it this way. Yeah, you are stating the obvious. This makes perfect sense to all of us now. It sounds absurd, but to me, this makes perfect sense. It's like, yeah, this is why you did what you did.
You're out of touch.
You're completely out of touch. You did not realize how much this decision meant to this team, how much this meant to Luka. You killed this poor boy. Did you see him absolutely bawling his eyes out coming back to Dallas? Like, it's crazy. This is crazy talk, but like I said, it makes perfect sense why you made this decision now.
Yeah. We all understand that you listen, you can't routinely let the fan base make choices.
Sure.
If the fan base knew what they were doing, they would be the general, like you could just have a vote, for, of who should, what should we do for the team?
I think that probably would be better.
Sometimes it would be an improvement.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like you don't have to outthink the wisdom of the crowds always.
Yeah.
And that's what Nico Harrison, Mavs general manager, was trying to do here. And you don't have to, you're getting way too cute here.
Yes.
And I love that he said this, like, do you think this would make it sound better? Like, I actually just didn't know that he was popular.
I don't know if
what do they pay you for then?
Right. I don't know if he thought this would make himself sound better, if he's just trying to distance himself from the situation. But to me, it makes it much worse. Like I said, it makes it clearer to me why he would make a choice like this, but it makes it worse as a general manager. Like, you look worse by saying something like this. And he also said, he goes on after saying he didn't realize to what level Luka was important to the franchise. He's like, well, we thought, with Kyrie and AD getting on the court together and Clay, we would have a championship caliber team.
Yeah.
And he's like, unfortunately, that just wasn't able to happen. And so that just caused the noise to get louder and louder. And it's like, even if they had have been on the court together and it worked out, it would not have worked out to the level of having Luka, in my opinion.
It doesn't make, we saw what it was like when you have Luka and Kyrie, you get to the finals.
Yep.
And when you have AD and Clay and Kyrie, you
have
basically
injuries.
You have nothing.
You have injuries.
And you didn't need to be an NBA general manager to know that.
Nope.
Finally, Airbnb is ending the guessing games. 8772 Radio U, at least as far as the cost of your stay goes. Well, I remember talking about this when it was basically mandated they would have to do this.
Yes.
But now it's gone into effect where Airbnb now shows you the full price of your stay by default, which includes all of the fees and blah, 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 the taxes and anything else that might go into it. It's not just the cost,
base cost of the place that you're staying.
Because inevitably you'd be looking through Airbnbs. You're like, oh, this one's $400 a night. And so I want to stay for 4 nights. And then somehow it's $2,500. And you're like, wait a minute. That's another $900. That doesn't, and it's all the fees and whatnot. So this is all going to be included now for the time being anyways.
Yeah.
This was something that was mandated. I think it looks like, if I'm reading this right, was already a thing in Europe. And then here in the United States, the FTC made a rule about it as well that may or may not stick around. So maybe Airbnb will get to go back to the old ways, which is the frustrating ways for all of us.
I really do hope the FTC does not turn this over and that it remains the same, because I think this truly is helping the consumer, which is what the Federal Trade Commission should be doing. And I'm a person, this may sound weird to some people, but I really enjoy just scrolling through Airbnb, even if I'm not going anywhere or staying anywhere. I just like creating little wish lists of maybe places to stay in the future. And I just like to see all the cool Airbnbs on there. And one thing that I always hated when I was looking for a place to stay, with a group of friends or something, I hated that it would show you the nightly rate, but then you would go in, and after you put in all your details and information, there it is. You're smacked with all of these extra fees, and your cost has suddenly gone up, maybe even by half.
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy how much it would go up. And so I really do appreciate that this is a thing now. I actually found this out a couple days ago. I was scrolling through Airbnb, and they actually, as soon as I opened the app, sent me a push notification that showed me you are now seeing the full cost of what it would be to stay at this place.
Yeah.
So
a couple points of clarification. One, it does not include the taxes. All the fees are included. Taxes still get added on afterwards.
Yeah.
Also, this was already, like, you could already do this. They literally had a toggle. And this is what makes me think, like, I feel like this is an exercise people should go through. Not us, but like people in business. If you are presented with the options of, do I want to toggle it so that I see the full price at first, or toggle it so I could see only part of the price without all the fees? So I don't really know why would anybody toggle it to the other thing? It doesn't make any sense.
No one wants that, but most people probably didn't know that feature existed. I know I didn't know that feature existed.
And so I believe now you can toggle it back if for some reason you wanted to switch it to the old way.
If for some reason you want to live in a dreamland for 2 seconds before you try and book the place, you can do that.
Yeah. I'm glad that they have been forced to fix this. And I'm looking forward to it. I have an Airbnb trip coming up.
Yeah.
A nice little cabin in the Maryland mountains.
Nice. I got one coming up in August, celebrating a birthday for my sister. We're going to Amish country.
Oh, that sounds great.
Yeah. No. Well, I mean, I feel like as long as you're willing to accept the reality of what it was, and, you know, check and see what the prices were, and there are still good deals that you can find.
And now, instead of mental calculations, they just do it for you. What is something that TV and movies always gets wrong? Let's open up the RadioU hotline.
877-2-RADIO-U.
Hop in the group chat and let us know something that every time you see it in TV or movies, you just go, well, that's not how that actually is. And, you know, I don't mean like, oh, people having superpowers, you know, like the smaller stuff.
Yeah, the stuff that is in real life that, you know, we all witness on an everyday basis or, you know, in our lives. And we're like, okay, yeah, no, that's not what it actually looks like.
877-2-RADIO-U. There's a real long list and there's different reasons, right? For sometimes they're just out of touch, the people making movies and shows. Sometimes it's because, I'll give you an example that everybody knows about, I think, at this point. And that is people carrying coffee cups, how they're always empty.
Yeah.
And they get because they're empty, the way people handle
Toss them around.
Yeah, is not accurate. It's always depicted inaccurately. But the alternative would be like, I think they could do it if they really wanted to get it right. They just think most people don't notice. But like the alternative would be, what if there was liquid in there? Well, then they could spill and cause issues, blah, blah, blah. So maybe just take that out and it's worth it to just always have the cups kind of get thrown around casually, a little too casually. But what are other things like that at 877-2-RADIO-U, the TV and movies get wrong? I have one that definitely comes to the top of my mind.
I have two that I immediately notice them, but they actually do kind of make me laugh every time because I'm like, that's just so ridiculous. That's not how it actually is. But I don't feel like they're extreme. Should I share them now or wait?
Do one right now.
Okay.
For an example.
The first one that I think it's everyone can agree with this. High school. There are no movies and no TV shows that really correctly predict what high schoolers actually look like.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. They always look too old, right?
Way too old.
And it's rare that they get like dialogue right either.
Yeah.
You know, like at some point.
It was clearly written by an older person.
Yeah. In movies and TV, like it is most dialogue in anything is not accurate to the actual, what people would be talking like in real life.
Yeah.
Because it's written for TV, but high school movies get it particularly bad. Like there are really no high schoolers that talk anything like it 9 times out of 10.
Yeah. And I think what actually is worse is not even the movies. Like the shows are particularly bad. with like the characters looking too old and the dialogue sounding really outdated. But yeah, I think high school pretty much a bad representation of what high school actually looks like. There are some shows that I think do a much better job at it, like Boy Meets World. I think, those were actual teenagers. They look like teenagers, and I feel like they do a pretty decent job of capturing what high school would have looked like in the 90s. And, so I'm okay with that. But there's example after example after example. Grease, for one. Oh my goodness. None of them look like high school students.
The older the movies, the older the high schoolers look too.
Rizzo, come on. She was 40.
Yeah.
Easily.
What are other things that movie and TV shows always seem to depict just wrong? You can't get it right. 8772 Radio U. You know what movie did that well? Spider-Man. Not Tobey Maguire Spider-Man.
I was going to say,
the Tom Holland Spider-Man.
Because Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire did not really look like high schoolers.
No, but like the new Spider-Man.
Tom Holland definitely played it well.
We heard from Kim, who said, driving. They clearly are never watching the road.
That was my second one. I completely agree, Kim. The driving one is so wild to me because I'll be watching a movie. I was just thinking of this. There's a movie with Ashton Kutcher. I can't even remember what movie it is, but he's like totally fixated on the conversation and the person he's talking to in the passenger seat. And the whole time I'm not even paying attention to the conversation, to the plot of the movie, because I'm just like, look at the road. Yeah. You're going to crash.
Sometimes it like in a movie or TV show, when you notice they're not looking at the road,
they will crash.
They do crash. And then sometimes you're expecting a crash to come. There was literally one of the new episodes of Black Mirror where this happened. The guy was not looking at the road so much. I'm like, oh no, they're going to crash. And then they didn't. So spoiler alert for that. Jake says, I work at a bank. One thing movies get wrong is how much space cash takes up. There's no way you're fitting $50 million into a briefcase.
No.
That reminds me of in Dodgeball when, spoiler alert, White Goodman offers Peter LaFleur the cash and he opens up the briefcase and it's like 1 wad of bills. You probably have never seen whatever amount of money it is before.
Yeah.
And it's just one stack of cash.
Yeah.
We also heard from Dave. This is so true. Hacking.
Oh, that is annoying.
I feel like that is to make it look visually interesting. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but also I feel like it's a way to circumvent a plot. Because they're like, we need our characters to move forward in this story, so we're just going to have them be able to hack into this government system, like, as if it's the easiest thing in the world. That really does annoy me too.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, and they do it so quickly.
Yep.
William says he kind of touches on one that we're in the same ballpark. He says how characters drink coffee even if it's hot and never burn their mouth. But how do we know?
Yeah, I guess we can't really tell. But if it is steaming, maybe you would kind of be thinking, isn't that super hot? Here's
my biggest pet peeve.
Okay.
Is in a lot of shows and movies, they take a sip of something, right? And they go.
They make a slurp noise.
And nobody does that when they're drinking their cup of coffee. You do not do that. And they do it every single sip they ever take. Like they're trying to really pound the point home that they're drinking coffee. Like, okay, we get it.
Yeah.
They're drinking coffee. You don't have to audibly cue that for us.
What about sitcoms when they start the day with breakfast and the kids eat like one thing of a bite of this huge breakfast spread that's on their table.
And then they run out the door.
Boss is here. They got to go. It's like, what about all this food?
What is it? Your timing is all off, Ma. You can get up a little earlier. I guess that is how kids are, though, isn't it? William also said how cars explode, never realistic, and how people wake up with perfect hair.
Yeah, no, that's not real.
That actually gets me, especially in like space movies or like watching The Last of Us, how they all have like, the people are all good looking.
Yeah.
Even though they're in like an apocalyptic wasteland and they all have great, nice haircuts and everything. It's like, that would probably be one of the last things you would do.
Yeah. You would not be doing self-grooming.
All haggard and whatever if you were actually in The Last of Us world. Let's see. Tim says you can say whatever amount of time it takes for someone to do something in a sports movie. And most tornado stuff, for example, they know the strength of the tornado way too soon in tornado movies.
Okay.
You know what? I feel like they can get away with that just because we don't know as much about it.
Yeah, I know for me, I'm not aware of that. If you're not into tornadoes, that might not be something you'd be aware of.
I've got 2 more. Renee says how the guns never run out of ammo. Unless it's a big plot point again.
Right.
Like, oh no, he's going to die. He can't reload fast enough.
I always count in my head. I'm like, all right, that's shot number 6. If they've got like a handgun or something, I'm like, how many bullets do they have left in that gun? You know?
And Robbie says how clean everyone's house is. There's never a dirty house.
Usually, no.
Again, unless it's
a plot point.
Yeah, unless this guy's a drunk whose wife left him and now he never cleans anything. Like, unless it's that, there's not just like a family that has kind of like a house in disarray a little bit.
Right.
Oh, man. I don't want to watch anything anymore.
Yeah, it's just awful.
It's all fake.
Thanks for listening to the RadioU Podcast. Don't forget to rate and review the show.